Greetings from the Charter School office. I'm Albert Bertram, the finance specialist for the office. So this sheet is a audit review sheet, and it takes the audit information and summarizes it into a 4-page sheet basically. So we use this for renewal and comparing the school year to year. So we're hoping that this form of communication will help keep the board, the management company, and our office all in the same communication wavelength, so everyone's on the same page basically. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'll put my contact information at the bottom, and we'll go from there. So here's the Academy Warrant information. That's pretty general. So we're going to start with the statement of net position. So that is directly from the audit, and it's derived on page 1. And so here's statement of net position. So look up there for the title to know where we're at. And then the current assets right there, and then you'll see that that matches up over here. So this is all derived directly from the audit. If you have any questions about what these are, feel free to ask your accounting person. If you need help, I'll be happy to help, but I'm not going to get into all the details of that. So as we move along, the ending net position should take the difference between these two, and so that's your ending net position for the current June 30th 2014. Previous year, just to compare to, was that amount. So that's that. I'll change the previous amount obviously to this amount next year, so that just lets you compare year to year to have a better understanding of the change of at the school level. So moving on to the balance sheet section, which in the audit would be 2 pages down. So we go 1, 2, you'll see balance sheet. Now we're not looking at the totals, we're just staying in the general fund for this and this column. So you'll see the classifications here, and then the general fund amount, and then down here we have the if it's non-spendable, restricted, unassigned. So on our audit sheet we see the cash and all that stuff right here. That's pretty straightforward. Unassigned, I've tried to make these little references for anyone who didn't know. Amounts that are variable for any purpose is unassigned, so that's why that's kind of an important one for the charter school office to consider, and the school. I won't get into these ones. You can pause the video and see these hoverovers if you need to know what they are, but this information is right in the audit too. And then non-spendable amounts that cannot be spent because they are either not in spendable form or they are legally or contractually required to remain intact. So if you notice that Academy Warrants amount here is exactly equal to the prepaids. You can't spend money you've already spent essentially. So that's that. Moving back up here, this shows the beginning fund balance, the revenues, expenditures, net change in fund balance, and then the ending fund balance. So that's just a quick overview of what happened during the current year. And then below that we just have some calculations. General fund, which is the ending general fund, divided by the revenues, and then that's put in a percentage form. These other ones are pretty simple too. Same thing for this one, except for it subtracts restricted funds if there was restricted funds, which Academy Warrant doesn't have, which is why these are the same. So the general fund divided by expenditures is just another comparison. Takes the ending general fund, divides it by the expenditures, and then the ending general fund divided by the beginning general fund takes this, divides it by this, and if it's positive or above 100%, that's a positive increase. If it's below 100%, then there was a negative net change during the year. So that is. Down here we have notes payable, which usually is state aid notes or some form of short-term financing or note, and then long-term debt. This is usually classified as a bond or something like to that extent, and then capital operating leases. I try to keep these all separated so they're easy to differentiate, and then management fees. Now these sections I'm going to show the detailed description on page 4. This is kind of just a summary. So we have the state aid. This calculation just takes the management fee and then divides it by the state aid, total state aid for the year. So that's where that calculation comes from. And then earned takes this amount and divides it by the fall 2013 count, which was the fall count for the June 30th 2014 school year. So that's what that's about. These revenues per square footage, we calculated the square footage that is utilized by the school for students. Now I know that these are the numbers right here, 49,000 and 18,776 square foot. Those amounts aren't the total square footage available to the school, but they're the amount being utilized from the most recent information that I have obtained. So that square footage number is used to calculate the operations and maintenance divided by square foot, which operations and maintenance is right here. and that's divided by the total square footage to try to compare. And then the square footage divided by the 2013 count, that's just another comparison. Now the payment per square footage is actually used, calculated using the, whether it be long-term debt or a lease. I tried to calculate the total lease payments and the total principal and interest payments for a long-term debt amount, and then divide that by the square footage amount right here, and that's where that number comes from. So that's just a way to compare school to school or whatever for the charter school office, but I threw it on there. Academy of Warren is pretty comparable to other schools in that respect. So the next page is just a list of all the breakdown of all the funds, or the revenues and expenditures, and year to year you compare this to June 30th, 2013 and 2014, and then the difference. So these are all pretty standard. I'm sure you've seen all this. These code numbers, I've had questions about these. These are accounting classifications, and these let you differentiate your accounts that you are tracking all these revenues and expenditures in. So if you ever have a question, feel free to ask about that. So I'll give an example. I put the accounting manual into a Word document, and if I ever have to look something up, I can just push the find feature up here. I've already typed in what I'll use as my example. Operations and maintenance. You type it in over here, push enter, and then that will find that in this document, so you can look it up. Here's says the function code is 26x, which the x is a variable. You can change it depending on what it is, and then so this is just a good way to try to figure out what to classify things as and find the description and stuff. So I just thought that'd be helpful, and that's why this is 26x. So this should match up to the amount on the upper right hand corner of page 1, the ending fund balance and beginning fund balance. So below that we have our budget comparison. This is the original budget, which I put this note here that the budget's due July 1, just so people know why there's such a vast difference here, is because there's not all the information available to make a good educated budget at that point in time, but it's required by law, so that's why there's potentially a difference here. So, and then the actual versus the final budget, and then this shows the percent change from the actual, or the final to the actual. So that's what that is. Underneath that we have instruction percent of revenues, which takes the instruction costs up here in the percentage comparison, this amount right here, total instruction, and then divides it by the total revenues up there too. So that's done in 2012, 13, and 14, and you'll see that the Academy of Warren has trended upward in that respect. And then this is simply the revenues in June 30th, 2014 divided by the fall count of 2013 again. So revenues, expenditures, and then there's the difference. So it's just a bunch of calculations to compare year to year. Down here we have our enrollment. So here's that 2013 number that was used in several calculations. The 2014 fall count is actually the unaudited number received through Epicenter. And the rest of these are all from CEPI, and then this should show the percent change from year to year, or excuse me, from spring, from this spring 2011 to fall 2010. This just shows the change, whether it was an increase or a decrease. So, and then for those who aren't numbers people and like graphical display, we have a nice graph down here. And then this is the free and reduced lunch counts from again from CEPI. And these are the amounts. The graph shows them down here, and then this is the percentage of the corresponding fall count, so percent free and reduced lunch. And then bottom we have our description, which if you recall on page 1 we have that overview of the notes payable, the long-term debt, the leases. This is the description of that. I won't get into that in detail. You can read that, and then here's the management information. So here's that $460,000 that was used up there on that page. There was no findings, which is good, and I put the contract information from the audit, and I know that anyway, but I thought it'd be good for everyone. And then the payment per square footage calculation, I explained what happened with that, what was done with that calculation right here. So it was reviewed by me and Mariah Wanick of our office. And then here's my contact information. My email is albertb@bmcc.edu. If anyone has any questions. I hope this was beneficial, and I hope it helped keep everyone on the same page. Thanks for your time, and thanks for what you do for all of the kids in Michigan. Have a good one. Take care and stay warm.